Right. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I love having you here because for those of you that don't know, we're going to talk a lot about Pinterest today. And Pinterest is one of my biggest strategies to get traffic to my website. Now, as I say that, I know a lot of you would go like, what? Is that even possible? I just use Pinterest to, look at recipes and look at gardening tips and all of those kind of things. But if you use it for your business, oh my goodness, it could have such a benefit to get traffic directly to your website. And that's why I've got Emily here. So Emily, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi, so yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me. And I am a Pinterest virtual assistant. So that means that I help predominantly female entrepreneurs to successfully use Pinterest, the business version, to increase and drive traffic back to their website. And Pinterest is a great tool for that. So my job is to create pins, drive traffic through maintenance of their accounts, and use Tailwind, which is another thing that we can talk about in this session, which is amazing for scheduling all these pins and organizing everything so that everything's going out on the optimal times that you want.
Yeah, and this is amazing. And this is why I'm so excited to have Emily here, because for those of you that don't know, Emily is my Pinterest VA, okay? Which is why I had to bring her on the podcast because of the amazing work that she's doing and helping me out with my Pinterest strategy. But then I thought, you know what? I can't keep Emily to myself. I've got to share her and I've got to share Pinterest to the world, especially if you're running your business and you want to make it a strategy for yourself in order to drive more traffic organically to your business. But before we dive into all of that, I want you to share a little bit of your story, Emily. How did you get started and how did you start your business? How did it evolve to where you are now?
Yeah, so I am actually a registered veterinary nurse by trade, if you could call it trade. And I was up until February working as a veterinary nurse. I'm still registered and I still plan on doing that for, the rest of my career in some way. But last July, I ended up seeing some information about ways that you can sort of have a passive income from Pinterest. And, a lot of times when people start their businesses or look into things like affiliate marketing and side hustles, it is generally because you want to increase your income, which I absolutely wanted to do. That was my primary goal. But when I saw that it was to do with Pinterest, I was just so excited because I love Pinterest. I've been on it every single day for years beforehand, before that July, and used it for all sorts of things to inspire me and even to buy products. So I already had an idea that I myself as a consumer had already realized the benefits of Pinterest and realized how it is actually more of a search engine and less of a social media as it is. The misconception is that it is more of a social media. So when I looked into this, I found a course and it's run by Kristen Larson and Gina Hawkey, and it's called Become a Pinterest VA Today. I watched a little webinar about what the course was, and I was just taken in immediately. I took a few days to think about it, and the day that I actually watched it was mine and my boyfriend's 1-year anniversary, just before we went over to the hotel that we were staying at for the night. So I just watched this, so it was mulling over my head for a few days, and I just decided to go for it. I really, really wanted to do the course, and I thought that it would be perfect for me. And yeah, as they say, the rest is history. I did the course, I set up a website and a business, and I had started to look into exactly what I wanted to do. And now I've kind of niched down even more into sort of the service-based industry, as I said, predominantly female entrepreneurs. And I just absolutely love, of course, the work that I do with you as a business coach. I absolutely love that. And I feel like that's kind of given me a really good idea as to where I want to go in terms of clientele, because coaching, life coaches, business coaching, graphic designing, website building, all these services are so great. And what I really love about what I do is that I get to help other people branch out and expose their business and the services that they're providing, which then in turn are helping other people. So it's like this just great circle of life, really, that is helping people and then helping more people and helping more people. And it's just a great domino effect. So that's one of the aspects that I really, really love, is knowing that I'm being part of that story for the person I'm directly working with, but then so on, you know, all these other people that they're then helping because of the work that I'm doing, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I know, because, you know, when you and I started working together, oh my gosh, you know, some of the things that you told me and some of the things that you started to doing and putting together, and I just saw a spike in traffic and a spike on impressions. And I was like, how the heck did you do that? I was just so amazed by the stuff, because it's true what they say, you only know as much as you know. Okay.
Yeah.
Or at the end of the day, there's only as much that I knew about Pinterest, because I've gone through it all, set it all up, you know, done all of those things and done my homework. But then I got to a point where I was just exhausted and going, oh my gosh, this is a great strategy, but I can't keep doing all of the work. I need help. And I can't keep being updated as well, or stay updated with all of the changes that they're doing, like with any platform. Which is why I got Emilie on board, and she's part of my team, which I'm so excited about. But I want to talk a little bit more about Pinterest, because as we're talking about Pinterest and I'm giving my examples as working with you and what you've done for me, I think a lot of people would go, well, why is it such a good platform to use for businesses, you know, for blog owners, brand owners? Why is it such a good platform to use?
So what I've done is I've actually made a little note of some stats that I want to share with everybody, because I just think that these are amazing and they perfectly sort of sum up how Pinterest is going to be so useful for anybody's, you know, as you say, business, blog, brand. Although I work with predominantly service-based, that's not necessarily to say that I wouldn't work with, you know, blog owners or brand owners, but it's just such an amazing platform for anybody that's trying to share any information or, you know, advertise any services or products. It's just amazing. So these are the stats. So 459 to 478 million people use Pinterest per month to actually find new ideas and inspiration, which is amazing to start off, because that's a lot of people.
That's crazy, honestly.
And they're looking for ideas, they're looking for inspiration, and that's exactly what Pinterest is there for. It's a visual search engine. 97% of Pinterest searches are unbranded. So that means that everything that people are typing in, the majority of people, 97%, each search is not aimed at a brand or doesn't lead to a brand. So that means that people who feel like they've got businesses or blogs or brands that aren't, you know, big name, like high street names, they might feel like they kind of just get lost in everything in terms of Google searches or Facebook or, you know, any other social media or even Pinterest. But actually, this stat is so amazing, and it even surprised me. I was absolutely elated to read it, because it just shows how amazing Pinterest can be for, you know, the underdog, as it were.
Yes.
And then the last two stats are 61% of UK pinners say Pinterest is where they go for new ideas to start a new project. So, you know, that's amazing as well. Over half of the people that are pinning are saying that they go to Pinterest for new ideas, which means that people, for example, in interior design or even just starting their own business, they're going to be looking to Pinterest for their ideas and inspiration to start those projects, which is amazing, because then it means that all these people that are offering these amazing services are going to be seen, and that's where people know to look. So that's amazing. And then lastly, 46% of UK pinners have discovered new brands and products on Pinterest, which is just under half. But again, it kind of backs up that second stat about searches being unbranded, because it means that Pinterest is giving that platform for all these amazing creators of blogs, brands, businesses who are doing all sorts of different things, selling products, offering services. And that means they're being seen. Whereas they might get lost in Google or Facebook or, you know, whatever we've said, but Pinterest is like that explosion of exposure kind of area.
Yes,
You know, it's where people can really be found. So
it
I just think
is.
that's amazing.
It is. And also, I just want to touch upon something that you said earlier on, and I just want to emphasize that a little bit. You have to understand that Pinterest is not a social media platform, okay? It's not like Instagram, it's not like Facebook. Their algorithm is completely different. What Pinterest does basically is it works on a very similar principle than Google does. And we call it SEO, search engine optimization. So when you use Pinterest yourself, what is the first thing you do? You type a little thing in the search bar. How do I make pancakes?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. And then some of the most popular pens would then come to the top. And as you would scroll down for the perfect image of the perfect pancake, you would then go and visit that site that you found in order to find that recipe. Just as an example. That basically is how you get traffic to your website. When people click on that button and then they obviously go to your website. So then they start scrolling through your website. And if your website is set up correctly, they will obviously start scrolling through a little bit more of what you've got going on there. So at the end of the day, it's all about SEO. And people do searches in the search bar. And this is where Pinterest is so amazing. It doesn't work like Instagram or Facebook or those kind of things. It really works with SEO. And this is what makes it so, so popular. But you've got to do it right, which is what we're going to talk about. So do you have any other things that you would like to share with them as to, apart from just the strategies, but maybe some ideas to why you would use Pinterest for your own business?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, there's, as you said, SEO is a really important part of it, and it is because the algorithm is created to take content that you post and assess the engagement level to which that content is receiving. And after that, it can build, you know, like an idea of how popular that content is. And once you've got that formula right, every piece of content that you put out and the specific keywords that you add, Pinterest is just going to take it and just propel it forward into the viewer's face, you know, on their feed. They're going to see that. So using SEO, using Pinterest business in the right way is one of the best things to do. You know, strategy is everything when it comes to Pinterest. And, you know, they are doing so many updates very regularly. I mean, I don't know about any other social media sites, but I really feel like Pinterest do a lot of self-improvement on the site, and very often. So for example, recently it's kind of been a thought in the past that the followers that you receive on Pinterest aren't necessarily the most important aspect of your strategy, and not something that you necessarily need to focus on, because they're not really going to give you much in terms of, for example, compared to Facebook or Instagram, where followers are quite important. But now they've actually realized that followers can be really beneficial, and that this is something that we should try and incorporate more into our strategies. And with that, they've kind of, the general idea in the Pinterest community is that idea pins, which for anybody watching who's kind of up to date with the new sort of pin that Pinterest has created for people to use, they were called story pins in the beta version, and now they're called idea pins. So again, another update that they've done recently. And the idea of idea pins is that they only link back to your profile. They do not link to an outsourced page, for example, your website. So what this means is that the only thing that you'll achieve by clicking on that pin is to go to that person's profile. And I just think that's such a great idea, because it means that you're getting straight to somebody's profile, which is giving them direct exposure. It might not be about your service or your product directly, but it's showing you personally. And again, it's kind of just this revolving cycle of making sure that your profile is optimized using SEO, using great keywords so that people actually find you. And then when they do click on these story pins, they're just going to be seeing your profile. So you want it to be amazing. You want it to be really eye-catching. You want it to be something that somebody thinks, oh, wow, I really want to follow this person, or I really want to see more about what they're doing. And then they're going to look more into your pins. So it's just a really nice addition, I think. And the other thing is that it seems as though Pinterest algorithm for these idea pins is designed to kind of boost them. So at the moment, now that they're sort of a relatively new thing, I think it's safe to say for at least the next 6 months or so, they're going to try and make sure that those pins are really propelled into the feeds. And they're also the first thing that come up if you create them when you go on somebody's profile, and they stay forever. So for some people who might be watching who think story pins sounds a lot like stories on Facebook or Instagram that disappear, they don't. So there's no need to worry about that if you're thinking that they're a temporary thing. They're absolutely not. They stay just as every other pin does. They just have a slightly different process for clicking on them. So that's really great. That's a new change that they've done. And I think utilizing the little benefits of these updates and keeping up to date with things to know exactly how to use something is one of the best techniques that you can use in your Pinterest strategy, because it means that you're keeping up to date with best practices, which is very important to Pinterest. You know, there's lots of different best practices regarding the amount of times that you pin every day, for example, the sort of content that you use, and lots of other aspects. And if you don't use their best practices, they will kind of just sweep you under the carpet a little bit and kind of class you as spam, which is the last thing you want. And they also have the ability to actually shut your account down completely if you really did abuse some of those rules. So it's just knowing exactly how to use Pinterest and what it really wants to see. And all these updates that come up are very, you know, if you're in the right place and you follow the right sort of sources of information, you get these emails, notifications saying there's a new video or whatever. If you're following that and you're in the right space, they make it very, very easy for you to learn all these things as they go, which is great, because then you're on top of it. But it still takes time. It still takes time to look through all of these things. And a big part of my job that kind of goes on behind the scenes, which clients might not necessarily see, is the research that goes on behind the scenes, where I'm making sure I'm updated with everything. If there's something new going on, or if I've seen something, being commented in one of my Facebook groups about Pinterest or within the Pinterest VA community, I then go and figure out exactly where to find that, look at blogs, look at other people that are sort of more focused on informing people about Pinterest changes, if they're not necessarily in the VA business, but they're more in the sort of informative side of things. And then, of course, using resources like Tailwind, which is an amazing scheduling service created specifically for Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
The owners and the people that run that are incredible. They put out videos every week about different things to do with Tailwind, Pinterest, and even other things like Clubhouse, which is a new social media app that's come out recently. So they keep everybody informed really well as well. But you still have to take the time to, watch them. Yeah. And they could be couple of hour videos, and they're so valuable, but you've got to take the time, otherwise you kind of fall behind.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of covered a little bit about what I wanted to ask, because I wanted to ask you what a Pinterest VA does. And you mentioned a couple of things there, but I think there's so much more that you do. Oh my goodness, because when you and I started working together, you dived in to do analytics. Now obviously you did that because I was already set up on Pinterest, but for some people who are not set up, you literally start off with scratch and you help them get set up the right way, which I think is so important, because this is something personally for me. I wanted to do it all myself. When we start out, we want to do everything all ourselves. So I took, oh my gosh, I can't even say how many years to go through everything, to learn everything, to get it all set up. And even when I did set it up, things changed again. So I had to go back and change it again. And this is where I got to that point, like, I'm set up, it's working for me, but it can be better. And this is where you came along and you really helped me. So talk a little bit more about what you do as a Pinterest VA for somebody who comes to you either already set up or haven't set up at all.
Yeah, so I have several different packages that cover, as you say, somebody that's been set up already or somebody that hasn't set up at all. And what I do is I generally do a 3-month program, which means that it gives us enough time to, on a personal level, get to know each other and how we work together, and for us to have time to work out little things like design aspects and, you know, what's important to you, what your business goals are, what your vision is for your business. But through those 3 months, I spend the first month, if you are already set up on Pinterest, I will do a Pinterest and Tailwind audit. Now, obviously, these things can be a bit variable. For example, somebody could be set up on Pinterest, but not on Tailwind. So I would then be doing sort of audit for one and set up for the other. If somebody hasn't been set up on either of those sites, in terms of Pinterest business, then I will set up both of those. And I think it's just important to mention here as well, if people are, you know, thinking a little bit about cost and membership and things like that. Of course, there are versions of Tailwind which you can pay for, but there is a free version that you could easily live off. And with Pinterest, there's absolutely no charge. So personal account, you may be thinking, oh, but I don't want to upgrade to my business necessarily because I'll have to pay, or will I have to pay? You won't have to pay. It's completely free. You upgrade to business as a free part, and you can keep your personal account, which is amazing because I love to do that and have the difference. So that's just a little tip there, so that to put anyone's mind at ease that we're thinking that. So I'll set up everything, and as you said, SEO is really important. So I'll go through all of that. I'll do SEO and keyword research to optimize the profile as best as possible. And obviously everything's set up in the first month, and or if it's already set up, I'll do an audit in the first month. But that does not mean that it stops there. As we go through, I'll continue to improve and develop things. And as you say, as updates and changes are made, sometimes there are things that need to be updated and changed within your profile as well. So that will keep going as well. And then after we've done the setup and all the optimization with that, all the other little technical bits in there as well, such as, you know, enabling rich pins, which might sound a little bit strange, but somebody might recognize that term, and making sure your website's properly linked up to your Pinterest account, because that's so important, especially when you have analytics on your website. For example, WordPress, I know, has analytics, functions for analytics that are quite good. So as long as you're set up properly, you can also get the benefit of seeing those analytics. So we just want to make sure everything is smoothly working together and flowing with that. And then in month 2 and 3, we start to focus on either growth if we've just set up. So that will be then pin creation, content creation from, you know, things that a client has given to me, like a stock of photos or a stock of videos or something, depending on their niche. And then again, I'll do SEO and keyword research in terms of pin descriptions, pin titles, all of that sort of thing. And then I'll create a custom pinning schedule through Tailwind. And then I do offer a couple of bonus features in terms of my programs, which are only included in the Platinum and Gold packages. And for the Platinum, it is a research and join up to 5 Tailwind communities, which for people who don't know what that means, they're basically a similar field to Pinterest group boards or Facebook groups, for example. So it's about sharing content, and the reach from that can be so amazing with repins from people in those communities. Yes. And then I will also do research and join up to 5 Pinterest group boards as well. With the Gold package, it's up to 3 on both of those. So they're just a great extra way to really increase your reach of the pins that, you know, I'll be creating for you, and to get your content out there much, much further than you can necessarily do just by pinning it to one specific board, for example. You know, it's all about the variety. It's all about getting it out there. And the reason why Pinterest boards are so great is group boards are so great is because we can collaborate with other Pinterest users in a similar niche, just as we would with Tailwind communities. But then we can actually pin things to their boards, they can pin things to our boards, and it just kind of helps get that extra reach. But what I would say about Pinterest group boards is that they are something that were created for more of a collaborative style. So Pinterest created these group boards features as something that people can use to share ideas with each other in a similar niche. And at times they have been sort of abused, maybe that's not the right word, but they've become very spammy. And this is actually something, if you already have Pinterest business or have group boards, or you're thinking about, you know, the validity of your group boards, this is something that can really, really damage your account as a whole, your engagement as a whole. So this is something that I will also make sure I keep on top of, because if somebody's already got an established account with lots and lots of group boards, that's absolutely great, but we might need to take a few of them off and archive them and just see how the performance goes after that, because sometimes a lot of people collaborating in one board can result in a lot of different content that kind of gets yours lost. And as we said at the beginning, Pinterest works off this algorithm where they're taking your content and they're seeing what the engagement is like on it. And if your content is getting lost in group boards, which have become not very niched anymore, then Pinterest is going to look at that piece of content and think, it's not really something that people are very interested in anymore. And they won't necessarily link it with the spammy thing, but they want people to know that this is the sort of, that this is the update and this is what's happening, because then we can make these informed choices to actually come off of these group boards, change things up, change our strategy, and see how things perform otherwise. And archiving them is great because you can bring them back if you want to.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you're saying that, because of all the work that you've done for me already. Oh my goodness. Here's just a couple of examples of what happened. So I started off by obviously creating my own pens, and I gave my brand colors and everything to Emilie, and she started creating pens for me. I started approving them, and she's just started penning them and getting them out there. Now she's got full reign, okay? She does everything for me. Because at the end of the day, she started penning things for me. And I remember this is one message that I got from Emilie. She's like, oh my gosh, I just penned something 5 minutes ago. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Emilie, but it went to 4K impressions within 5 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, it was something very high like that. And I was
crazy.
I was shocked. I was just so overwhelmed by it, because it was showing in real time, which I hadn't necessarily looked at, because it was the very beginning. I hadn't looked at a real time pin, you know, straight after pinning necessarily, and it was just shooting up. I was so excited.
I know. And then I said to her, what did you do? She's like, analytics. We work with analytics. And that's the great thing, because what I've never done with my Pinterest strategy is I've never really dived into the analytics. I've never had really gone in to see what am I doing right and what am I doing wrong. And this is where Emilie was such a key for me, because she went and she dived into the numbers, which just completely went over my head. But she loved this, and she just went in and said, this is what you're doing right. This is what we need to change. Let's start off with that. And she started making these changes. And I just saw the strategy going from strength to strength based on real data, not based on me thinking, oh, you know, I should do this or I should do this. And Emilie started taking over. She is, you know, she's on my Tailwind tribes. She's doing things there for me. She's penning constantly. She's creating my pens. And basically, I didn't have to do anything on Pinterest anymore. I just need to get updated. But this is what is so great, because personally, for me, I just don't have the time to go and get updated, to follow up on what the Pinterest changes are. And this is where you're so great, because you know what those changes are and you can instantly react to them. I mean, as an example, you were talking about the stories or the ideas that they've now changed it to. And I started using it, but I haven't used it to the full advantage. So that is something else that I need to look into now with you in order to amp that up a little bit, because I've also seen when I go on Pinterest, the first thing that comes up when I search for something is the stories, or the ideas now, as they're called. They're the first ones, and only then would the normal pens start coming up. And I was like, ooh, am I missing out on something here? So here's the thing. We don't want to cram your head full of a bunch of stuff where you just go like, my brain is completely exploded. You know, this is just way too much information. my suggestion would be that if at the end of the day, if you want to use Pinterest, or if you're dabbling with it already, but you just feel like it's way too much to handle, do what I did. Get Emilie, get her to help you to set it all up and to sort it out. Because honestly, for me, the increase in traffic coming to my website and the amount it has helped my business grow, it's been phenomenal. Honestly, I think it's the best decision I've ever made in my business, is really investing properly in Pinterest and investing in Emilie, because it has helped my business tenfold and I can't complain about it. So personally, thank you, Emilie.
You're very welcome. I'm so pleased that it's, given you such an amazing boost. And Pinterest is all about a long game, really. So
yeah,
when, you already had quite an established account, which was amazing. And we've just kind of taken, the foundations that you've well laid and the things that you've really built up and just enhance them so that we can really get the best out of them. And I think that's the really great thing, is that we're not just going to see a massive spike and then it will go down and never come up again. And equally, it's not going to take years, but it's just about knowing that it is a long game and it will keep paying off and off and off as we go, as we tweak our strategy, as Pinterest gets to know our algorithm and our content, and it'll just keep growing. And that is sort of I think that's a really good keyword to use about Pinterest is growth. It's about growth and maintenance, continual improvement. And the other thing I wanted to mention as well about the packages is that both my packages include the platinum and gold that I mentioned, include obviously a monthly report every month. So every person and every relationship is very, very different with a client. So it's never going to be a one size fits all. But I do like to have a monthly meeting at least, just to be able at the end of the month to say, this is what's worked really well. These are great figures, show you some screenshots, go into analytics a little bit and show you some results from that. And then go forward into what we're going to do next month to do further improvements, or are we going to continue with this strategy? And we really have, I want to have a good conversation and collaborate with somebody instead of, just going off and doing a one size fits all template, because everybody's business is so unique and individual. And that's the sort of service that I want to provide to people, is again, a unique and individual service that it might be using a platform that millions of people are using, as we know, but everything that we do can be really specific to what your niche is, and we can really focus in on exactly the essence of your business. And I really love that aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm so looking forward to our meeting, because we're going to dive in a little bit into my analytics and what I need to change. So for those of you listening, obviously you can go and connect with Emilie if you want to learn a little bit more about how she can help you with your Pinterest strategy, either to start off with or to grow. You can connect with her via her website or via Facebook, or just follow her on Pinterest as well and see what she's up to. And then what I'll do is I'll make sure that all of those details are below in the show notes, so you can connect with her there. But before we go, Emilie, is there a couple of last tips that you want to share with the audience as to if they just want to start dabble with it a little bit themselves?
Yeah, so I would say that tip number one would be to really make sure that when you do set up your Pinterest account, or even if you have already set up your business account, that you just go in and make sure that you've definitely enabled rich pins, which you can do once you've linked to your website. And it's very easy to do. There are instructions on how to do it. And, if you're going to do it yourself, then, absolutely go ahead. YouTube videos, instructions from Pinterest and things like that are great. And they're really great to help. They're really easy to follow. So I would make sure that's going, because that really enhances the way that your pins actually are shown on the feed, and it gives the viewer so much more information about you before they've even clicked on the pin. So that's really, really great. And then I think keywords and SEO, a really, really important aspect of any Pinterest strategy if you're wanting to increase numbers, increase impressions and click-throughs into your website. So make sure that you're really focusing on keywords and keyword research. And then the last thing I would say is just consistency. we know that different social media outlets and different search engine outlets are run on different algorithms, and the main thing with Pinterest is that it really loves fresh content continuously and consistent activity.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, this is where there's so much fun in it, because if you are struggling with consistency, if you are struggling with a setup, if you don't know what it is that you need to do or pen, you know, just get somebody to help you. Honestly, it is so much easier at the end of the day. And also, I think from my point of view is, you also got to find somebody that you really have a great energy in a relationship with. And that's why Emilie and I connected. We just clicked instantly. We had a great conversation. I was like, that's it. You're the girl for me. You're going to help me. So if you kind of feel like, this is it, I'm going to use Pinterest, I really want to make a breakthrough with it, I'm going to start driving that traffic to my website. And remember, we talk about organic, processes here. We're not talking about paid ads or anything like that. This is all organic. Then Pinterest is definitely the way to go forward. I've seen the difference it's done with me. I'm not the only one. But if you want to dabble with it, if you want to start off with it, I'm sure you're going to be happy and think, oh my gosh, best decision I've ever made. But by all means, get in touch with Emilie, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to have a chat with you and help you out any way you can. But Emilie, I just wanted to say thank you so, so much for being here with me on the podcast. It's amazing. I love talking about Pinterest. We can talk for hours about it, but I'm going to keep it short, because I know if we talk too much, people's brains are going to be exploding thinking this is way too much. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, you and I will be in touch very soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to talk, and I look forward to anybody that needs any sort of help or has any questions. I'm right here waiting for them.
Amazing. Well, we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.